Micah, the narrator's boss, exposed his personal communications in a team meeting, confirming the narrator's suspicion that Micah was spying on them. He did this by casually quoting a private message the narrator had sent to his brother about creating a better scheduling app. This public jab, delivered while Micah leaned back like a king on his ergonomic throne, caused the narrator's heart to pound like a war drum, while others just saw it as a typical passive-aggressive remark from Micah. The narrator knew better. The way Micah held his gaze for just a moment too long, followed by a smug, deliberate blink, confirmed their worst fear. Micah had read their private messages. This was a gink. The narrator had initially believed Micah was a run-of-the-mill micromanager, a garden-variety narcissist obsessed with trivial things like tracking mouse movements, correcting font choices, and using corporate jargon to describe office snacks. However, this was not just micromanagement, it was a hostile act of surveillance. The narrator's paranoia was justified. The narrator had always been careful, keeping his company-issued phone off and never syncing data. But a month prior, HR had mandated the installation of an efficiency tool called Help, which was deceptively presented as a collaboration booster. The narrator should have recognized the red flags. The tool's true purpose was hidden within a dull productivity training video, but its capabilities were far more sinister. It ran constantly, logging every keystroke and clipboard entry, including messages from apps like Signal. Upon this horrifying discovery, the narrator immediately deleted the app from all his devices, feeling as though it was infested with fleas. He knew he couldn't just build a way out of this situation. He had to systematically erase his existence from the company's records. His first move was to contact his cousin, Lisa, a former NSA agent who now specializes in digital forensics for high-stakes divorce cases. He sent her a burner laptop and a copy of his company device, along with a sizable check. 2 days later, Lisa called with a damning report. Micah was using Helitra's backend to clone the activity of his entire team. Not just the narrators. He had access to screen captures, file logs, and even heat maps of their activity. "He's watching screens like Netflix," she reported. The narrator held his breath, then asked her what he needed to bring Micah down. Her answer was simple. Proof. The narrator devised a plan. While Micah was occupied with his ego-stroking meetings, he would use the very tool Micah used to spy on them against him. With Lisa's help, the narrator set up a mirror script hidden within a fake dashboard and helped. Every time Micah peeked at one of their screens, the script would record his IP address, a timestamp, and the screen he was viewing. The narrator was now collecting a highlight reel of Micah's spying, not just isolated incidents. Meanwhile, the new startup, codenamed Spinout, was rapidly taking shape. Dan, the backend developer, worked on the code with manic energy, while Bree created user interfaces so flawless they were clean enough to eat off. They brought in KM from marketing, who had a knack for making mundane products sound appealing. For an extra punch, the narrator reached out to Iris, Micah's former assistant, who had quit the previous year after calling Micah a Porteous data starting Iris. Didn't just agree to help. She provided crucial files, including an audio recording of Micah saying, "I don't hire thinkers. I hire lifeboats." The narrator uploaded this recording to an anonymous SoundCloud, slyly titling it Corporate Haiku Volume .1. Nobody had noticed yet, but soon, Micah would hear it play on a loop. The grand finale was scheduled for the company's quarterly all-hands meeting, which also happened to be Micah's birthday. The office calendar marked the day with a dry erase golden circle and the words, Party Popper, Micah's Level Up Day in Bubble La Terza, detail likely added by Micah himself. HR even sent out a company-wide Slack announcement 3 days prior, treating it with the reverence of a major holiday. The worst part was the planned team-wide appreciation circle, where everyone was expected to offer a compliment to their dear overlord. The narrator nearly choked on his coffee reading the announcement, but feigned enthusiasm, even drafting a fake compliment in the group chat before deleting it in disgust. What no one knew was that the startup was launching on that exact day. At noon, they had a press release ready, a landing page prepped, and venture capital funding locked down. The narrator had been ignoring job recruiters for 2 weeks, not because he was searching for a new job, but because he was leaving and taking his team with him. The coordinated rebellion began subtly. Breeze Monitor was now covered with post-it notes containing binary code. Don started arriving early to erase his logs from the company's Git repository. KM accidentally scheduled a call with a PR firm Micah despised and never rescheduled it. Each action was deliberate and coordinated. The more they acted, the more arrogant Micah became. He started taking longer breaks, hinting at a global promotion, and acting as if he had already won the war. The narrator played along, even laughing at his terrible jokes. The night before his birthday, the narrator stayed late, pretending to finish up paperwork. In reality, he was loading a Trojan horse screensaver onto every conference room monitor. It was a simple, company-branded placeholder with a timer. At noon the next day, it would switch to the new startup's logo, name, and a slogan that read, "Built by people who weren't allowed to think." At home, he finalized the press release, sent the investor packet to TechCrunch under embargo, and drafted a final email with the subject line, "Thought you'd like this on your big day." The email was addressed to HR, legal, Micah's wife, and a rival VP Micah had tried to poach. He didn't send it yet. It had to land at the perfect moment. The next morning, the narrator arrived with 2 boxers of bagels and a completely fake smile. Micah, utterly clueless, complimented his initiative. At 11:59 a.m., Micah stood up and clinked his coffee mug to get everyone's attention. Just as he began to speak, the screens in conference rooms, hallways, and reception started to flicker. Micah turned to see his empire crumble, and the narrator clicked send. Micah froze, his smile vanishing as he saw the screens turn on him. "What the hell is this?" he yelled. The room went silent, save for a single Slack notification. One by one, people stopped pretending to work and turned to watch the spectacle. The new company's name and logo appeared, followed by the slogan carved in granite. "Built by people who weren't allowed to think." Micah stormed toward the nearest screen as if to punch it into submission. "Who did this?" he roared. Just then, his phone pinged. He saw the email and clicked. He saw the press release, the product screenshots, the quotes from his former employees, the investor statement, and the list of recipients his wife and his arch nemesis, Greg Farmer, Micah was speechless. He scanned the room like a deposed dictator, his eyes landing on Coombe, who was smirking like a Bond villain. "This is intellectual property theft," Micah finally stammered. "You think you can just hijack my people?" But then Don, the quiet, unassuming developer, stood up. "Not your people," he said flatly. "You didn't build anything. You spied on us." Micah then pointed at the narrator. "You planned this. The narrator calmly cut him off. "Remember that speech you gave? 'No one quits me.'" The narrator nodded at the screens. "Happy birthday." Just then, Jennifer from HR and a representative from legal appeared. "Micah, we're going to need to speak privately," Jennifer said, her eyes fixed on the unfolding digital coup. Micah blustered about being ambushed and retaliated against, but Jennifer cut him off, revealing that they had reviewed his screen monitoring. Micah insisted it was legal, but Jennifer handed him a printout of the specific policy he had violated. His hand was shaking. He looked around for support, but all he saw was freedom. Bree was packing her belongings. Dawn was already logged off. Coombe had his jacket on. The narrator just watched as Micah realized his entire team was gone. Micah's rage was replaced by a frantic, aimless pacing, like a broken robot. HR followed him, a cleanup crew waiting for the inevitable. But the room was eerily quiet. It was the silence of liberation, of stepping out of a burning building and finally being able to breathe. Then came the pings. First one, then 50. Micah's personal phone was lighting up with notifications. The social media storm had begun. At 12:05 p.m., the dev thread with a full breakdown of their new product was released. Within 10 minutes, #OutLaunch was trending. Rival product managers were already messaging them about job openings. Micah's wife, Denise, added the final devastating blow by replying all to the press release email, telling him to check his messages because she wanted a separation. Micah, in a frenzy, refused to go to the conference room, yelling that they were all traitors. Don, without even looking up, unplugged his keyboard and said, "I'd rather pour hot glue into my Ethernet port than work under you again." Even Nolan, the young intern who once got scolded for blinking too loudly, handed in his badge. Micah lunged at Bree, accusing her of stealing proprietary concepts. Calmly, she produced a legal document. She had filed a patent for her original wireframe under her own name 3 months ago, which his emails had never approved. She then added a final sweet jab. His life coach had called the office that morning, and the topic was managing expectations. The room erupted, not with noise, but with motion. Dozens of people stood up, packed their bags, and walked out. The narrator set his resignation letter on top of the HR clipboard, a single sentence written on it: "No one quits you." Then he walked out into the sunlight. Micah's story wasn't over. He updated his LinkedIn headline to "Strategic Disruptor Rebuilding Teams from the Ashes." But the board wasn't fooled. The Helitra spyware had a paper trail detailing every keystroke and screen capture, all without user consent. HR didn't just fire him. They announced his termination in a curt company-wide email. Meanwhile, OutLaunch exploded, gaining 8,000 signups in 48 hours. built by survivors of corporate micromanagement, became their unofficial tagline. Then, Greg Farmer, Micah's nemesis, reached out. He wanted offering a $2 million seed investment and full creative control. His only condition was that they poach Micah's replacement at Orbio, a woman named Jell, who was sharp as a blade and twice as fast. Jell, who also despised Micah, resigned and joined the team, bringing with her a folder of internal documents from the post-Micah wreckage. Inside, they found evidence that Micah had tried to build a competing startup using their exact concept with a pitch deck so poorly made it looked like it was done in Microsoft Paint. He even copied Dan's back-end architecture outline, but forgot to strip the metadata, which still contained Dan's name. They posted a redacted version of the pitch deck to their company Slack with the caption, "And they say imitation is the sincerest form of flailing." The final blow came from one of Micah's former mentors, who revealed Micah was telling people that Outlaunch was his idea and that the narrator was his apprentice. The narrator simply smiled. This was perfect. It meant Micah was paying attention. The team then released their new flagship feature, Liv's AI-driven scheduling tool that made Micah's stolen idea completely obsolete. The launch announcement was titled, "No One Quits Better Than Us," with the tagline, "Built by the people your micromanaging boss couldn't control." It went viral. Micah retreated to LinkedIn, posting defensive rants about vision theft. He even created a burner Reddit account to argue with Outlaunch fans, which Dan's bot quickly identified and flagged as monitored by the Micah monitor. Micah became a meme. The final beautiful act of justice was the lawsuit. Micah filed the motion against them, claiming they stole trade secrets. But he only had a blurry screenshot of the narrator's old notes as proof. Lisa, the queen of the kill shot, demolished his case in a deposition with timestamps and IP logs. His own lawyers dropped him. Micah posted a Medium article titled "How Losing Everything Made Me Richer," which had no views. He was denied a booth at the Tech Vision Summit, where the Outlaunch team was giving a keynote, because there were too many failed scheduling apps. He was now a life coach, mispronouncing his own quotes. The narrator's final thought was a message. To Micah, "We didn't betray you. We outgrew you. We build things that don't need cages." The ultimate revenge wasn't in burying him, but in walking away so loudly that no one would ever want to follow in his footsteps.